So everybody, welcome. And thank you for your patience with our delays. I'm Chris Morita Clancy, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Bruna Petito and Nuno Gosmal. No, you say it for me. Guzmão. And we are so very happy to be with all of you here on Zoom and all of you here in the room with us for a hybrid Big Portugal Live. We are thankful, grateful to the Biotensegrity Archive for supporting us in this very exciting endeavor. Let me see what I wanted to talk about today. I've changed this. Here we go. So, skip that. So our presenters today, along with the three of us who will be presenting here in person, will be Stephen Levin, Graham Scarr, who's our first presenter, Doug Johnson, Susan Lowell de Solorzano, all of whom are on the Biotensegrity Archive board, and Maria, can you say Maria's name for me?
Maria Ángeles.
Mariana Ángeles will all be presenting on Zoom. For those of you who are here today, we have bathrooms in the corner. We're going to have presentations. We'll have a coffee break in the morning and more presentations and experientials. We're aiming for a 2-hour lunch break. Now we've been a little late starting, so that might shorten. And in the afternoon, we'll have more presentations. We have a break at what will, for us, be dinner, 5 o'clock break. And then we can all head over to the Biotensegrity Tea Party when we'll be celebrating 50 years of Biotensegrity. And that'll be at a different link that we can ask Susan or Jason to share closer to that time. Yeah? Yes. Okay, so welcome everyone. We're so happy to have you here. Without further ado, Graham, we'd love to invite you up to give your presentation.
Well, thank you. Hello, and thank you for inviting me to the first Portugal Big. I'm going to talk today about the icosahedron, what it is, where it came from, and why is the system not working. There we go. Okay. What it is, the icosahedron, what it is, where it came from, and why it is important. Because this particular shape has far-reaching consequences for understanding the human body and all living organisms. Stephen Levin described the tensegrity icosahedron as a finite element and archetypal model for biology. But in order to fully appreciate what this means, we must first examine a few other things. We will thus be looking at the foundational principles that underpin both life and tensegrity, and include Platonic solids, closed-chain kinematics, the vector equilibrium, the jitterbug, golden ratio, and superstability, because they all contribute to our understanding of the complex whole. So lots of things to look at in a short time frame. And if you're new to all this, then don't get hung up on the details, just enjoy the roller coaster ride. At the most basic level, atoms interact with each other in a number of different ways, all of which can be categorized into those that pull atoms together and others that keep them apart. And of course, there's a lot more detail associated with these processes, but simplifying them into this duality of attraction and repulsion makes them the drivers that cause atoms to spontaneously organize themselves into the most stable, energy efficient configurations, to form rigid crystals and flexible molecules. And such arrangements then form as they do because of some basic principles of self-organization, geodesic geometry, close packing, and minimal energy. And these simple rules also apply at higher size scales, where attraction and repulsion are now referred to as tension and compression and can be modeled through tensegrity. Tensegrity frameworks also conform to the same basic principles. They are geodesics because the hidden force vectors of tension and compression always follow the shortest path and in straight lines. They are close packed because their component parts automatically get as close as they can to each other, and they always settle into a state of minimal energy at each moment in time. But before we get to the icosahedron itself, we must first look at the circle. A circle encloses the largest surface area within the shortest boundary, which makes it a minimal energy shape. And putting lots of circles next to each other leads to the appearance of different patterns and shapes that connect to each other at 60-degree angles, but leave gaps in between. But joining their centers with straight lines produces structurally stable triangles and hexagons. The triangles provide a stability, while the hexagons represent the best compromise between space filling of the circle and complete tessellation of the plane. Triangles are thus important because of their inherent stability, and hexagons are common in the world around us. Equal-sized bubbles spontaneously form hexagonal arrays as the surface tension minimizes the surface area, as do the crystal structures of graphene, diamond, and basalt. And in the living world, the honeycomb of bees, the eyes of insects, airways within the lungs of birds, and spectrin in the outer cortex of cells. Cells naturally close packing configurations that can have a variable number of cells surrounding them, but hexagons are the most common. Triangles and hexagons thus appear because of these same three basic principles, but there are many different ways of filling two-dimensional space. Squares are inherently unstable, which is why they rarely appear in nature, and pentagons don't close pack in two-dimensional space, but other shapes do. So just as a circle is the most efficient shape that encloses space in 2 dimensions, the sphere is its equivalent in 3D. The sphere occupies the maximum volume within the minimum surface area of any structure, and atoms, bubbles, oranges, and planets all approximate to the sphere. Putting lots of spheres next to each other still leaves those wasteful spaces in between, just like the circles did. But there is a space-filling solution. Buckminster Fuller appreciated the significance of the so-called Platonic solids because they're all based on the sphere, the centerpiece of his synergetic system of geometry. Here, the faces of each one are all the same, with their vertices, the pointy bits, equidistant from their centers, and with 3, 4, or 5 sides that can be projected equally onto the surface of a sphere, as this tetrahedron shows. These 3 triangulated shapes, the tetrahedron, octahedron, and icosahedron, are then highlighted because of their inherent stability, where their edges always meet at 60-degree angles, as opposed to the cube and dodecahedron that are liable to collapse. Fuller considered these shapes as energy systems, with the connections between the centers of the spheres as invisible force vectors that contribute to the structural dynamics of the system. And starting with the close packing of 4 spheres and connecting their centers with straight geodesic lines, produces a system of force vector relationships, the tetrahedron. The addition of more spheres then produces self-similar higher order tetrahedra, all of which occupy the smallest volume of space within a given surface area of any regular structure. Fuller thus described these close packing arrangements as expanding energy systems and used the term frequency to represent the different energy levels. The tetrahedron naturally appears in the close packing of oranges, radiolaria, the crystal structure of diamond, and the symmetries of these tensegrity models. Now, one of the defining characteristics that emerges from this shape is a tetrahedral angle of 109.47 degrees that are created as the edges are projected inwards to a central point, as shown in these wire models dipped in soap solution. And the same angle naturally appears at the intersection between bubbles, where their surfaces conform to Plato's laws and always meet in groups of 3. And the edges always intersect at the same tetrahedral angle. And this angle naturally appears in the honeycomb of the bee, trabecular bone, and the hydrogen atoms in methane. It is thus Plato's laws that give rise to this close packing arrangement, And because living cells and tissues conform to the same basic rules, it leads to the more complex physics of soft matter foams. And just in case you're wondering what happened to the icosahedron, believe me, we will soon get there. The tetrahedron is thus important because of its inherent stability and because it describes these hidden energy systems that can expand into higher order 2, 3, and 4 frequencies. It allows other shapes to emerge from within it, such as the octahedron. The octahedron is interesting because it is contained within a pair of 12 frequency tetrahedra that interpenetrate each other as a geometric duality. But these shapes cannot fill three-dimensional space on their own. What they can do is combine together within a close packing arrangement known as the isotropic vector matrix, and which fills three-dimensional space completely, with each of these shapes emerging from within the other. And also note the hexagon that's hiding within it. Nature always finds the most energy efficient ways of doing things and always connects at two adjacent points in straight lines. As a result, the most energy efficient way of connecting any 3 points together is to form a triangle, and 4 points a tetrahedron. There is simply no other way, which now brings us to the icosahedron. The icosahedron relates to the tetrahedron and octahedron because its faces are all triangles, but differs because it consists of 12 spheres close packed around a central space and exists in higher frequencies that closely match the space-filling efficiency of the sphere, all of which is highly significant from a biotensegrity perspective. The icosahedron was the inspiration for Buckminster Fuller's geodesic domes, because they're both strong, relatively light in weight, and enclose a central space. The most widely known being the Montreal Biosphere. It was built in 1967 as the world's largest dome at the time. And geodesic domes are common in the world around us because of their inherent stability. The icosahedron naturally appears in the spherical viruses and radiolaria, and in truncated form like footballs, as pollen grains, the fullerene molecule carbon-60, the third form of carbon, and clathrin vesicles are secreted by certain cells. And all this preamble has now brought us to the real significance of the icosahedron. Single bubbles naturally form spheres because the pressures acting on their surfaces are balanced in every direction. But true spheres don't exist in the real world because they're just mathematical constructs. So bubbles may look like spheres, but their surfaces contain lots of irregularly shaped molecules that maintain the spherical shape through surface tension, and which is now represented by the tensegrity icosahedron, or T-icosa, because of the omnidirectional balance of these forces of tension and compression. The T-icosa consists of 6 struts that remain separate from each other and are suspended and balanced within a network of 24 cables, which Kenneth Nelson described as islands of compression floating within a sea of tension. And along with Buckminster Fuller, was the first to recognize the significance of this tensegrity model as a new principle of structural design in 1949. The T-icosa can also be coupled with others to form a tower that's been compared to the vertebrate spine. As a chain, it forms a tubular skeleton that can be stretched and compressed, with the strut forming a cross-helical arrangement that enables the tube to bend easily without buckling, a model of arteries, the gastrointestinal tract, etc. One of the defining characteristics of the tensegrity icosahedron is its ability to change shape in a controlled way, as it contracts auxetically towards a central point and increases in density, before automatically returning to its original state of balanced equilibrium. And it can do this because the cables and struts are coupled into continuous mechanical loops, known as closed kinematic chains, where each part of the system guides the position and motion of all the others, and which together constitute the basic mechanics of tensegrity as a dynamic energy system. Kinematics is all about the geometry of motion, with the three-sided shapes creating a stability that allows the four-sided shapes to change in a controlled way. Five or more sided shapes are inherently unstable on their own, but can be part of more complex systems. Each part is thus mechanically integrated with all the others at every level, so that when one part changes, the entire system becomes involved. These closed-chain tensegrity systems are well described in humans and a wide variety of different animals, where each anatomical part consists of multiple substructures organized in the same way within the global heterarchy. But auxetic contraction is part of what enables the tissues to change from being soft and springy to a stiffer, more condensed soft matter phase. And the heart, lungs, stomach, bladder, skin, tendon, and bone all behave in this way. So we cannot literally see the T icosa in living bodies, because it is just a model of the hidden force vectors and represents a close packing of multiple energy systems that are constantly changing and interacting with each other in complex ways, which is why Stephen Levin defined it as the finite element and archetypal model for biological structure. And to continue with this, we must first quickly look at the cube octahedron, another shape which emerges from within this close packing arrangement, and which has a central nucleus surrounded by 12 satellite spheres, with each cube octahedron sharing space with all those adjacent to it in every direction. And once again, each sphere is considered as a nucleus of a dynamic energy system, with the force vectors radiating it out from the center, balanced by all those surrounding it, and which Fuller referred to as the vector equilibrium. The vector equilibrium, as a representation of a balanced energy system, is then illustrated through what is called the jitterbug, which starts at the cube octahedron stage as a vector equilibrium. I'll say it again. The jitterbug starts at the cube octahedron stage as the vector equilibrium twists, folds, and contracts towards a slightly smaller icosahedron stage, followed by the octahedron, and finally the tetrahedron, not shown here. It then untwists and returns back to its original shape before repeating the cycle. In other words, a continuous auxetic contraction and expansion, and an energy model of living systems that are constantly changing from one phase to another, which then highlights the real importance of the icosahedron. Living systems are constantly changing, but must remain intrinsically stable throughout. We couldn't survive if they didn't, which means that there must be some sort of homeostatic algorithm that keeps all the body's internal processes orderly. And superstability now provides the intrinsically stable framework that formalizes the concept of biotensegrity in living systems. It is illustrated through the tensegrity icosahedron. So here this model is conceptually considered through the mathematics of graph theory as a set of points, nodes, or vertices connected by straight lines, now referred to as edges. The nodes able to get closer to each other but not further apart, the red tension elements, and others that can get further apart but not closer together, the blue compression elements. In other words, the cable and strut edges behave like tension and compression springs that can change in length and vary the amount of elastic energy stored in each one. These springy edges then automatically seek a balanced state of equilibrium. But as a superstable framework, it can have any number of possible edge combinations for any number of nodes or vertices. Here, the edges can get longer, shorter, divide, merge, or even switch energy functions, with the entire system involved in making these transitions, and the configuration as a whole remaining completely stable throughout, no matter how complicated it becomes. Superstable tensegrity thus provides an intrinsically stable framework that consists of a potentially infinite number of edges and vertices, and it does so through the minimal energy principle. Superstable tensegrity is thus a representation of infinity, and the imagery of such a framework has the capacity to freely switch between an infinite number of different combinations of edges and nodes, cables and struts, then allows a shift to be made from the virtual, logical, and mathematical perspective to the more tangible morphological transformations of life and its processes, including the human body. With the local, regional, and global metastabilities of attraction and repulsion, tension and compression, are constantly reorganizing themselves in response to the ever-changing environment, and enabling each part of the system to change shape, grow, develop, transform, remodel, repair, and move with a minimum of effort, and with the system remaining intrinsically stable throughout, and biotensegrity as a superstability hypothesis for biology. So there we have it. From the three basic principles of self-organization, geodesic geometry, close packing, and minimal energy, to the triangle and hexagon, the platonic shapes of the tetrahedron, octahedron, and icosahedron, closed chain kinematics, and the tensegrity icosahedron as a dynamic energy system, and also the golden ratio that we haven't had time to look at yet, all of which highlights the significance of the icosahedron in living systems. So thank you very much for listening. There's a lot of detail in that. Go away to the books and find out more. Thank you.
Say thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Hi, Graham, and thank you. And welcome to everyone else who is newly here on Zoom and also arriving here in Sesimbra at Gramail. Excuse my accent, you guys. So can we open the floor to questions, comments on Graham's presentation? First, Graham, I want to say I'm looking forward to watching this again. We've had some technical stuff happening on this side, so I've only seen bits and pieces of it, but I was really excited to hear that you're specifically addressing the icosahedron itself.
Yes, it's a shape that's got a history. I wanted to put that history in context because it's important to it's important background information to biotensegrity.
And can you, for us, those of us here, we were having some difficulty with the sound in this room. And so I have a request, and that is if you were able to summarize in just one or two or three sentences, what is it, why the icosahedron is so important for us in this paradigm. And speaking slowly, we've got multiple languages here. How would you simplify?
The tensegrity icosahedron, it's one of the first tensegrity models that was invented, should we say. Steve Levin recognized the importance of the tensegrity icosahedron in the 1970s. He also recognized all the information I've given to you before that built up to it. It's all about physics, geometry, geodesic connection between 2 points in a straight line, close packing, and minimal energy. These three basic principles underlie everything in the universe and are really important to understanding the natural world. And because they, through this process I've just described, ultimately lead to the tensegrity icosahedron, which is based on the same principles. This is why this model is so important for understanding what we do in the human body, whether we're therapists, whether researchers, biologists, whatever. It's so important this model isn't just dismissed as just a bunch of sticks and strings. It is so crucial to the biotensegrity context.
And you're bringing more and more into it with the recent superstability paper and bringing it up here. But I see Jason has a question. So we're going to pass it on to you, Jason.
Yeah, hi, Graham. In, the biotensegrity literature, a lot of the focus is the balance between tension and compression. But in terms of just the icosahedron model, what relevance or significance do you attach to the three planes of the icosahedron? Vertical, horizontal, and sagittal relative to the three-dimensionality of our world and life. And do you does what are your thoughts about on that?
Yes, those tensegrity icosahedron, as Jason says, has got three pairs of struts arranged in 90-degree angles to each other, which gives it a cubic symmetry. Now, cubic symmetry has become the basis for the buildings around us. We build cubic blocks. That's how buildings are made. That's how biology has been considered. We talk about the sagittal plane, the coronal plane, and the transfer plane. It's in the anatomy textbook. This is how living body is described, which is very useful, but it misses the real point of biology, which is not constrained by cubic symmetry. The real importance is the duality of tension and compression. That's the really important thing, and the way the struts are balanced by the cables. And that applies to everything in the universe. Planets and stars are pulled closer to each other, call it attraction, gravity, whatever. But they're kept apart because they've also got their own dynamics that push them away, do other things. So, yes, tensegrity icosahedron has cubic symmetry, but now you know this, I want you to forget that issue completely because it's not relevant to biology itself. It may be to descriptions, but not the living body, is my assertion.
And yet our basic organ of balance in our inner ear also has a that cubic geometry of X, Y, Z, call it different planes. Like we live, leaving aside, the time, we live in a three-dimensional world. I'm just wondering if you draw any,
Yes.
why the icosahedron is this, primordial structure or, building block or, whatever, as Dr. Levin pointed out in the early 1980s, the icosahedron is, the basic building block. That three-dimensionality of it, I think, at least provides the structure through which, why Fuller, refers, can you talk more about the energy states like this? I think there's, I just think there's something in that three-dimensionality. We live, like we are in a three-dimensional world.
I don't believe we are in a three-dimensional world. I think three dimensions are used to describe the world, but I don't think the world is three-dimensional. It just so happens that this tensegrity model has three sets of parallel struts, but I don't think that's
just a coincidence.
I think.
So you think it's just a coincidence?
I missed what you said.
Do you think? Are you saying it's a coincidence?
Oh,
I'm not saying it's coincidence.
Can you hear me?
Oh, that's what I'm asking. Like, what is the significance of it?
Can you hear me? Yes, you can.
I'm getting two conversations
jump in here because we are on a limited time frame today, and to invite the conversation to continue over on the homepage. But what I want to say is, to me, what really becomes clear with this conversation is what we tend to see is so powerfully impacted by our conditioning, our culture, and our culture, as Susan Lowell points out, we're in a carpenter world. So first of all, I will see height, width, and depth if I'm looking for it. But also what people tend to see the first time they build this is based on that, because that's culture. But we're going to have one more question from this group here, and that will be from Nuno, and then we need to move on. I'm sorry, Jason. I'm sorry, Graham, but I know we'll have other opportunities to talk about this. Go ahead, Nuno.
Hi, Graham. What I'm hearing you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're telling us not to look at what we visually, as just Chris said, what we visually see in the construction of the icosahedron as a physical thing. You're telling us to see what's hidden as the forces interacting that give that shape, but it could be any other shape. The shape doesn't matter in itself. It matters what's the interaction in the.
It's a tensegrity icosahedron itself, which rather than thinking of the three sets of parallel struts, think of it as two sets of helical. I haven't got the model with me. There are 6 struts, but you can also look at it as 2 sets of helical struts. One set has a right-handed twist, one has a left-handed twist, and but you have to look at it in a different way. It is still the same tensegrity icosahedron, but that's much more important, that helical twist within that structure, which I didn't actually mention, but can't put everything in it.
Okay, good. Thank you. So,
thank you.
Maria.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Thank you very much for your presentation, and
Great.
I think it will continue in the discussion because there will be many questions for sure. Now I think we have Maria's presentation. Maria Angele Ruiz. I think we will
share her.
We will share your presentation, and you can.
And then questions can go to her.
Yeah. So we are searching for the presentation to share it.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It says health. She says health laboratory.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So here is Maria's presentation for us to hear.
Just a sec.
And then we can ask her what sparks in us.
Just a sec. I'm gonna do it again.
Okay.
Good morning. Thank you everyone for coming today. Before we get started, I'd like to congratulate the Valle Tensegrity community. Congratulations and happy birthday. Like thank to all the thinkers, researchers, and authors because they have made it possible for me to be here today, contributing my share of sand to accompany you both. It's important, if some of you are pregnant, please consider if it is appropriate for you see illustrations about instrumental delivery in this moment. Our goal today is to review some relevant information about fascia and birth, natural and instrumental birth. The way we are born determines the rest of our lives. Let's get started. The spiral shape has been present since the formation of the universe, in the Milky Way, in mathematics, in nature, and of course, in our existence, since the embryonic period. As hominid transition to bipedalism, the pelvis involved becomes shorter and wider, providing better balance and support for walking upright. As a consequence, it resulted in a narrower and twisted birth canal, with the entry and exit lanes orientated differently, requiring the fetus rotate during birth. In this slide, we can see the transition in the lithotomy position. The taller the fetus don't need to rotate. You can see in this side. In the opposite way, in the Homo sapiens, the head descends following a spiral. That allows the cranial bones overlap slightly. During vaginal birth, the fetus must navigate through areas of tension within maternal pelvis, adapting to the shape it has at the moment of birth. We can see here. The uterus contains a multidirectional spiral arrangement of muscles fiber. During labor, this architecture produces an internal rotational movement that coordinates with pelvic floor. When uterine forces collapses, it rotates. The spiral motion allowing descent and opening to the birth canal. This interplay between uterine rotation and pelvic floor dynamics, chain reaction, push and pull, forms a helical staircase pathway toward birth. The bones of a newborn skull are connected by sutures and fontanelles, which allow a certain degree of overlapping to reduce the cranial diameter and facilitate passage through the birth canal safely. The cranial board is itself a densigram model. This idea appears in the Buckminster Fuller's drawing and has also been developed by Graham Scarr. We usually see facial tissues, superficial continuity, and the first models of tensegrity were one of his fathers. But now we are going to think big and deeper. The tension from the skull can be transmitted at a distance through the meningeal tissue. This continuity connects cranium with the vertebral column, cranium with vertebral column, with pelvis, and the fetus head is going to adapt to the pelvis structure, and the cycle begins again. As mothers, we transmit the tension patterns to the next generation. So far, we have seen the thrusting movement of the skull bones in natural childbirth. This type of overlapping occurs in specific lines and planes according to the bone mobility of the skull of the structure of maternal pelvis. During vaginal birth, the fetus must navigate through areas of tension within maternal pelvis, adapting to the shape it has at the moment of birth.
Sorry, we cannot hear any more the presentation. because I think the screen is not shared with audio.
To the entire organism through the meningeal tissue, that is fascia. In forceps, the forces directly influence in parietal temporomandibular joint, with consequences in the ears, eyes, temporomandibular joint, shoulders, and from the head to the toe. Many times, a cesarean section occurs after a long process where the fetus head has been subjected a lot of pressure, and it's necessary to disengage it from maternal pelvis. The vacuum cup influence in the circulatory system. There are a lot of affected areas. One of the most important, they are the pituitary gland. Through the cerebellum tentorium to the pituitary gland regulates hormones, and fascia is sensible to hormone levels. Carla Esteco and Caterina Fede have a researcher show us the relationship between sex hormones levels and fascia. Other areas that could be affected are tibial venous sinus, arterial sinus, and the column, the vertebral column, usually the first and second vertebra. The tension applied on the skull can be transmitted at a distance through the meningeal tissue. This continuity connects meninges with the dural tube that connects directly with vertebral column with diaphragm, iliopsoas, and pelvis floor. Although we cannot see the connective attachments, they form a unified craniosacral network. Protecting gestation and birth is essential to avoid cranial injuries that may affect early life functions, particularly the cranial nerves of survival. This nerve fully formed by the third week of embryonic development enable newborn feeding, porting, and survival. If altered during birth, difficulties in breastfeeding, growth, and maternal bonding may arise. We can see in this slide the position in the cranium, in the embryonic period, and in the face in the baby. Reminding us that the way we are born profoundly influences in the rest of our lives, not only physically, but also in behavior, according to the theory of Niels Bergman. I see every day in my clinic the pain, this kind of diseases, and the statistics are increasing. Can you imagine all the consequences of this? Deliveries? Can you imagine all the opportunities to resolve? We are going to move to the beginning, spiral, connection, balance, continuity, tensegrity, biotensegrity. Fascia is a sensory organ. and have all these properties according to the researcher, Robert Shade. Sensitive to hormone levels, proprioception, interoception, influence of emotional regulation, and emotional disorders, like a network. What can we do? Together, we can make a difference. Not everyone present here today have the possibility of becoming a mother, but we are all children, and we are shaped by how we are born. All of us from all over the world can contribute to advancing the care and support provided during pregnancy and birth. Thanks.
Thank you, Maria. It's really gets me thinking and wondering. The birth transition, there is a lot of pressure, regardless of the way that we're born. And I understand you're talking about special deliveries like forceps and cesarean.
Mm.
And I wonder, of natural births, how common is it also to have these conditions arise? Or how often do you have patients? I guess you would never see the patients who don't have an impact from their birth.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Thanks. You asked me about the natural delivery
Yes.
consequence.
So, natural.
Yeah, there are not only consequences in the instrumental delivery. It's true that in natural delivery, sometimes with the period of the expulsive period is so long, the head of the baby is with a lot of pressure during long time, and this situation can damage to the pressure in the cranial bones. But it's differently because this pressure occur in lines and planes that is in nature are their lines and planes is not modified by pressure, are in the correct direction, even though the pressure. And sometimes in natural delivery, the nurses press the womb, and there are more pressure in the head of the baby. In this case, if there are pressure here in the womb of the mother, the pressure of the situation of the head can suffer more pressure. In this case, in the vertebral column, this is the more common disease in this kind of natural birth.
So to try and paraphrase, a birth process will always impact, of course, the way that we are as
Yes, always. Birth is
outside of the womb.
Yes, it's a trauma.
And the introduction, it's a trauma, but it's also part of life, a part of nature. And our bodies are always self-adapting. And yet when we introduce something like the forceps that are hard matter, then the response is going to be much more extreme.
Yes, true.
So do we have any questions or comments from either the Zoom audience or from anybody here? Anybody have a question for Maria?
There is something written here.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to read it or do you want me to?
You can read it. And in a premature deliveries, even vaginal ones, they are also present dysfunctions.
Okay, so Mariana added that in the premature deliveries, even vaginal ones, they also present dysfunctions. Mariana, do you have anything to add? I know you are often working with young people who have perhaps had trauma more than typical.
I'm gonna be super quiet here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me well? Yes. It's I think it's because they're not big enough yet, right? I work with very premature kids, and I feel like that's part of the issue that they, even though they have a vaginal delivery, they they don't go through those forces because they're too little, right? So that is also you can feel that when you're working with their cranial work. So yes, very interesting, Maria. Thank you.
Hearing then is that we
Yeah.
need a certain amount of that
Mhm.
that
Mhm. It, Mariana said sometimes, or in babies with cesarean section, that show us pressure in her bones. But this is for the position in the womb, because maybe pelvis they are distorted or distortionate, and then have present in one side of the head, and sometimes they are quistes. I don't know how to say this in Spanish, in English. There
Cyst,
are
cyst.
cysts, and the uterus is occupied by these cysts, and the fetus have less space and have pressure. And there are some difficulties to these babies because don't have the space necessary. Sometimes they are premature, and sometimes they are C-section, where the gynecologist needs to disengage fetus body to this pressure with the fist. There are a lot of issues of situation. It's not only the maybe the instrumental deliveries that we need to accompany to reduce the statistics. Maybe the take care of pregnancy, the woman in this moment. Yeah, Grace.
Sorry, I'm getting clocks, but we have up to, we're moving into a transition. So if we have any one more question or comment, we would welcome that now. Or Maria, if you would.
Yeah, let me know. I can answer by email.
I was going to say, if you'd like to have a minute or two to summarize, then I will welcome you to do that. I'm going to mute myself, pass the mic to you, and get ready for. Yeah. Okay, Maria. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You can have last words if you wish.
Sorry?
Do you have any last words you would like to share?
I have my forces instrumental side odor. I don't know if you can see it or maybe another moment.
Why don't we give you one more minute if you would like to share that? We'll spotlight you.
This is the forces adult side. And
Okay,
this is
now you're spotlighted.
Where here I don't have my model here today, but maybe you can feel or see the structure and where is in the head, baby head. It's for that I said you that influence in the most important bones on the cranial, what is the glossopharyngeal nerve, vagus nerve, olfactory nerve, the most important for survival. And if cranial nerve is damaged with this in the not only the pressure, but the gynecologist needs to rotate in the opposite, maybe sometimes in the opposite way, because the priority is save the life. There are a lot of consequences.
Thank you so much, Maria. It's a pleasure
Thanks.
to be here. Now we are going to move to Chris Morita.
I see that.
Thanks. See you there.
Maria, I see that we do have quite a few people here on Zoom. We're now going to move from presentation style onto actually building models. We're going to play with closed kinematic chains. So if you are there with us on Zoom and you have, and you got my email and you have pipe cleaners and that's what most of us here will be using. We're going to take a moment to set up and then we will move on. Is that Olga?
Yes.
Hi, Olga. So nice to see you here. Okay, we'll regroup.
Bye.
Want to talk to them or
No, I think we
Okay.
can
do I
move
keep
it.
this on? Can I move the computer over or not?
You don't need, you have a.
But for the PowerPoint? I
Okay,
guess I don't.
I can push for you.
Okay. So over here, for those of us who are live, we're going to come into, we can have 3 groups of 2. And we're going to,
Can I put
so
the,
come with me. Paula can, and maybe Bruna can go together.
can I put the, do you need the,
Sure, yeah, and then can I see it too?
yes.
Oh, perfect. So today, what we're going to do is build and feel the movement of closed kinematic chains. So the questions that we're going to be exploring are, what can we learn from closed kinematic chains? How they move and impact each other. I'm hoping to give us an experiential understanding of the difference between 3 bars and 4 bars. We'll be exploring things like stability, movability, or and what was the other one? Just how when we change closed kinetic chains, it will change the way that something moves. We've got lots of opportunities to do that now. So Bruna and Paula, can you go together?
I need to be here, or do
That's
you
why I
need,
was wondering if I could take can I just take the computer to me? No. If you're not using the projector.
please, but just one thing, people are seeing you, your hands very little.
Okay,
And-
we can shut that off. And then if you and Paula go together using those ones. And Cecilia and I are going to be here. So what we have here are, I'm using straws. You can use toys. You can use geomags if I could. And the short ones are roughly half the size as the long ones. You guys have some extra long ones, leave them out for now. And we have some pipe cleaners. So we're going to make, first of all, you can thread 3 bars onto a pipe cleaner. And those of you who are using the pipe cleaners, I'm actually going to join 2 together so that they are longer. Is this okay? Okay, and then I'll do the first one to show you, Cecilia. Oh yeah, you do it. I think you need this longer one, actually. Okay, so for you, you're going to use those. So we have different materials to explore. So you can take 3 of the short ones. And Bruna and Paula have different materials that we'll show you guys later. So we build a 3-bar kinematic chain. Not quite long enough, so you have to use put it to this. And you know, you and Angela's doing that here. you can start to make the 3 long for our next one. So joining them. So they're 3. Just because they need to be a little longer. Now, if we are using the pipe cleaners and straws, it's really good to have the joints tight. Okay, so that's 3 bars, yeah. So before you do anything with it, let's explore, this is from Susan actually, an open kinematic chain. I need to, sorry, thank you. Let's explore an open kinematic chain and just notice the controllability, whether it's very mobile or whether it's very stable. Can you move on? Because we're doing this together. Okay? And note that to yourself. And then you're going to close the 3 bar. I mean, you're going to close the ends. So we go from an open kinematic chain. I'm not good. I know. That's okay. Is it better if I do this? This is your voice, someone else. I think so. Yeah. So we can go with that. Okay. So we go from an open chain where the ends are open and close them up. And now we have a closed 3 bar kinematic chain. And I would ask you to again check for stability. Is it stable? Does it move around and change shape very well? You can say it loud if you want. Yeah? Okay, so this is a very stable shape. Now, it's faster to build. Let's try building a 4 bar chain. So if you're using the straws, you need 3 long. And I'm going to go and make it a rectangular shape. So short, long, short. Long, short. You guys can do a square if you wish. Then you're just gonna be different when we try them all up. Okay, so then this long open one I think is even harder to control. What happens when we close it? Again, make it quite tight. Good. Now, what is the movement? How does this one move? Can it move? What is its stability? Ability to be stable. So if we compare the 3 bar and the 4 bar, which one's more stable? The triangle gives us stability, and the 3 bar gives us stability, and the 4 bar gives us mobility. So far, so good? Yes. So let's make some more 4 bars so that we can join them up into a couple kinematic chains. We need one more. Gotta bring it here. Now this is partly so that we can, having to do with what's coming up later today. There we go. And then we can add the 4th one here.
You have the fourth one here.
Okay, would you wanna join it up? Uh-oh, I did this one wrong. So we attach it there and there. And move this one. Good. Now, what do you think is going to happen when we try and move this one? And at first, when we're trying to move them, let's do them on the floor, so we're working in 2 dimensions at first. Somebody want to move this, or you want me to? You can go. Okay. So first of all, I have some control if I just move one of the bars. What do you see? Do we notice how everything responds? Okay, nice. Move here, and what do you notice about the response? See anything? Is it random? No, so it becomes patterned. And what do you think will happen if we lift it up now? So it goes from, I don't know actually, it goes from, oh. If you go from 2-dimensional movement to up in the air, now it has even more degrees of freedom, more movement options, yes? Mm-hmm. What I would really love to do is to pass this around and have you feel the different things that I do, or that it does, not me. You want to play this? You guys come up and play, because this is really meant, I'm distracted by the Zoom. Really, what this is meant to do is give you an opportunity to feel. So why don't you take turns coming up and playing. So, go ahead. It's fun. So, we're now working with 4-bar kinematic chains. Is anybody curious to see what will happen if you start adding triangles? So we have extra straws, we have extra pipe cleaners. You guys can also add triangles through these joints here inside. Or you can do them wherever you want. You can do them from here to here. Here's Cecilia.
And his name.
Pardon?
It is name.
Well, now what? So we can see here. I'm going to move this way. That Bruna has added a triangle. What happens now when you try moving it? Does it change the movement? Yes. And then over here, Angela is adding a triangle. And if you can put that under the camera. Oh, did I just lose my light? Sorry. So now it's moving a little differently. I'm curious to know what would happen if you put a triangle there or here. So what we can do here in this room is keep playing, keep changing the structures that we're building and see how it impacts the overall movement. Yeah. There you go. It's all the package. Oh, this one's going to be very interesting here. I'm gonna.
Maybe slide it this way a little more so that it's.
Okay, now move it.
And I think we have another.
Yeah. So now we have a pattern where there's multiple, just one, two, three, four, five. There's multiple triangles together. Who's going to move it to see what happens? So for those of you on Zoom and those of you here manipulating or working with these coupled closed kinematic chains, are we getting a sense that the patterns of these closed kinematic chains are going to impact the movement? Yeah. Yes, so as Angela just said, there's more stability where the triangles are. And as Bruna spoke of earlier, it's like creating an anchor. And that in the 4 bars, there's more mobility. And where you put the triangles doesn't matter. Yes, so I'm going to ask you to just give me a little space here. So right now we're using bars, but there are many things with patterns and kinematic chains. This is I love making models. This is origami, and it's a series of triangles, and which are 3 bar and 4 bars. And you can see here how, is it better this way? Shine, or this way. The pattern that I folded determines the movement. What happens then if I pop out some of these folds? It changes the motion. Now I know we've got some body workers here. We have people who are moving in their body. Does this make you think of anything in particular? Try it, and you can try it.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need some. I think we can use some constraints in the body if we want to like enhance other parts of the segments of the body that we see are more stuck or more immobile for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
We can constrain the parts that we see moving, I would say too much, they never move too much, but they move more than the stuck ones.
Mm-hmm.
And we can use that restraint as a way to get to more mobility in the stuck parts. You see?
Yeah. So what you are saying then in terms of, maybe it's
I would
easier.
add a triangle to, in figurative terms, I would add a triangle to the body, or in literal terms, as I cross my legs, as we are sitting cross-legged,
Yes.
we are adding triangle shapes in our lower body to firm it more, so we can stay here in a more steady way.
Yeah.
Instead of being wobbly,
Yeah.
sitting on the floor.
I love this. Anything else people want to add here?
I think also we can start to play that if I add a little bit more compression in the system, what is the anchor that I'm going to provide some movement or some sense of volume, so we can work, imagine these triangles and these squares about what we see in the body or what the body shows to us. There is a possibility to work instead to work with mobility or stability, thinking joints, we thinking forces is very related to what Graham said. She was very.
Yes, and I'm going to just give you a little teaser because Bruno's going to take us through an exploration of this after our lunch break. But I will just walk over to the other computer and see if there's anybody out here that has anything to add about these ideas. Hey, there's Carol and there's Camilla and Jamali. Welcome, everybody. It's so nice to see you here. Or your names. Does anybody, and Olga, does anybody have anything that they'd like to add before we move on? And tell me, what time is coffee break? Is it now? It's about time for our coffee break. So that was just, oh, I have 10 minutes. It's not time yet. Okay, would you like to see some more origami? Or should I go on to, I actually did, where is it here? Can they see? No, they can't see. So I'm not going to bother sharing this screen, but I do have examples of other closed kinematic chains. You saw one on Graham's, you saw more than one probably, but I'm remembering specifically one on Graham's presentation. I have a PowerPoint that I will upload onto the big homepage that you can watch there. Probably I won't do it until afterwards. We've talked already about the closed kinematic chains in the body. If you have not made these, I would like to hear from our audience here who have made them. Does it make a difference to hold them in your hands? Does that impact your understanding of what these couple closed kinematic chains do and how they can impact movement? And if you look at different parts, how it can change the speed perhaps, or the size of the movement. Who would like to respond? Anybody? Does making this make a difference? Do you think?
I didn't quite understand the question, sorry.
That's okay, I didn't ask very clearly then. Do you feel like making these and holding them in your hands is valuable? Does that teach you something new than just looking at them on pictures?
Yeah. Yeah. You see the restriction or feel the restriction or clearly when you move it.
So that they can see what you do with your hands?
Grace?
Yeah. Okay, move forward more.
No, I think Camila.
Yeah,
Great.
sorry to interrupt. Do you think you could bring the mic closer to whoever is talking because it's very hard to hear?
Okay, thank you, Camilla.
Thank you so much.
Here. Yes. Okay, so this is Cecilia, and she's going to move the structure she made and tell us what it feels like to hold it in her hands as she's moving.
Sorry, I think the problem is that the microphone is not connected to the computer when Chris is far.
Yeah, I'm trying to see that.
Just unplug the computer and bring it closer.
Exactly, bring the computer closer to where she is so we can actually see what they're doing as well from this angle.
You've not heard the whole time?
Yes.
Mariana? Okay.
She's better.
Is better?
Much better, thank you.
Okay. So when I look at the structure, just looking at it, I can sense that, you know, some parts will be more restricted than others. But when I move it with my hands, I can feel it. You know, it becomes more obvious, and you feel that, you know, the triangles really keep the structures stable in these positions, and when you move it, it's still stable there. Everything else moves. It's different when you feel it, really.
Yeah, and would you encourage people to make them themselves?
Oh yeah, It's
Yeah.
fun. It's fun.
It's fun.
Can I just add something? For me, when I feel the structure doing with my hands, doing what it does, it reminds me practices that I had, movement practices, namely Feldenkrais, who works a lot with constraints or restraints to how can you find your way, your movability with a constraint that you impose. And I felt myself doing Feldenkrais sessions, classes, by seeing and touching the model moving.
Very good.
Talks to my
Okay.
experience.
No, so I now have a question. What do closed kinematic chains have to do with, maybe we need a smaller one. Does this one show up? With tensegrities? Now, if you haven't read it yet, I encourage you to, and maybe Jason will put a link on the Zoom session for us, to read the most recent paper by Graham and Steve and Leonid and Susan are the authors on that paper, called Biotensegrity Superstability Hypothesis for Biology, I believe is the name. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And you will find in that paper a really nice writing on closed kinematic chains. And within that paper, and I'm sure you guys have been talking about this forever, there is the comment that closed kinematic chains are the mechanics of tensegrity. So Cecilia, will you show people on the icosahedron that the tensegrity icosahedron, the bar, the closed kinematic chains, can you find a 3-bar or a triangle and just point it out for people? Yeah. So there's a 3-bar, and I'm sure you all have your tensegrities with you. And now, do you see 4 bars? So when you condense and expand the tensegrity, knowing what you've learned and seen, how do these closed kinematic chains or determine the movement?
So this four bars, I mean four
Yes, that's right.
sides, do move, and the triangle doesn't move. I mean, within itself.
Yes.
And because one is 4 sides and one is 3 sides, it makes the spiral movement happen. Because this is stable, and this is movable.
So what you're pointing out is really the pattern of open and closed. No, not open and closed. The pattern of 3-bar and 4-bar chains is really impacting the movement. And in the tensegrity icosahedron, which Graham pointed out earlier today, it's so important to biotensegrity. We have this in, out, and around movement. And Cecilia just really nicely pointed out what's going on here. Very nice. Thank you.
Can I just say something? You just said something relating to what Graham and Jason was making a comment. You named these parts bars. And as I look to the physical thing, I would say the bars are there. I would look for the triangles and the 4 bars in the bars themselves, but you're not mentioning the material. You're mentioning the property or the relationship of that the material constitutes. So I think it relates to what Jason was asking.
Thank you. Yeah, and maybe we can have Graham come up. I know Graham also will use linkages. And I think what you're doing is really nicely bringing this back to, we're talking about energy when we talk to when we're thinking about speaking about biotensegrity. Is Graham there? And Graham, you're a co-host. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think you're explaining it very nicely. Carry on.
Okay, how much? Thanks, Graham. How much? 2 minutes? Okay, so one of the things I would love to do, can you pull up that picture with the cells and the bubbles? So we have just 2 minutes, so we'll invite anybody from Zoom that wants to come on just to unmute themselves and start and just speak, and we will listen. Otherwise, I will invite all of you that are here today. We made some bubble solution. We've got lots of straws around because I want to remind everybody that these are all models and the bubbles will show us something different because the bubbles are more omnidirectional. I know years ago, we did a course called Shifting Paradigms and people played with bubbles and we learned so much. And also we had in Trailblazers, a movement mentors. Was it movement mentors? We were talking about close kinematic chains.
I think so.
I wasn't there.
I think so.
Oh yeah. No, it was book club.
Book club, yeah.
And what really came up, and Susan brought this up. Is Susan here?
Yes.
Was that the closed kinematic chains that they're not just on the level of global level. We find lots of research papers with examples in the eating mechanism of a fish and the praying mantis. And I do have pictures of all of that. I'll put it up in the discussion place. But really what came up is this is all scales and just look at bubbles.
Sorry, and because this is running in my mind.
Yeah, I want to hear this.
By mentioning that these are bars instead of these being bars in the searching for the 3-bar or 4-bar relationship, we can also say that in the body, the soft tissues can work as bars in the sense of the relation, and not only the bones that constitute the CKCs, but everything can, every part, every tissue, every level can constitute part of a CKC sequence, right?
And they'll see that when they look at bubbles, because when you look at your bubbles, you're look at the patterns and the shapes. Okay, is there anybody that wants to speak from Zoom?
We're talking that they still work with bubbles and learn.
Can you?
Yes. Anyone wants to open the mic and share something or ask something?
Otherwise, we'll have a break.
Yeah, I think we can go to our break. We have 15 minutes break. Is that right?
Yeah. And we're going to shut down Zoom and open it up again so that we can try and figure out the whole YouTube live.
So in 15 minutes.
Okay, so we are going to finish the session and we come back in 11:05. Yeah, the hour. Yes. And we are going to be here. Thank you.
See you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna
end it. Yeah.